So me always say, wanty wanty can't get it and get it no wanty. And this is the case with this story. So let's get into the story about Curtin Bennett. With 3 degrees and well on the way to attaining a PhD, Curtin Bennett is convinced that he was recently denied a teaching job at a high school in St. James because of his weight. A concern raised during his interview to fill a vacancy for an English language teacher. Bennett, a seasoned accomplished teacher who currently works part-time at Versan Educational Services as a facilitator and a teacher of the Caribbean Examines Council CXC English and Social Studies, said that after years of working with a non-government organization, he wanted to get back into the public education system, so he applied to fill the vacancy that existed at the school. The school responded positively to his application and in early February invited him to an interview, which was conducted by the head of the school's English department and the school's principal. I went for my interview and had a very good interview. Mind you, I have locks and expected older people and seasoned educators to ask me about my locks, said Bennett, or, of course, I have navigated that issue successfully thus far. They asked me questions about the locks that seem to be a non-issue. I'm articulate and I answered the questions to the best of my ability. And quite frankly, I'm glad that he brought up the fact about his locks and navigating his locks. While Jamaicans are known worldwide to be the originators of locks and Rastafarianism, Rastafari and people that have locks have gone through a lot of religious persecution in their own country, and having locks is seen as a taboo thing, especially in a place like Jamaican education system. Especially being a teacher that is going to teach students. And Jamaicans like to have clean shave, short haircut teachers. And this is because of our close proximity to Christianity. Not only our proximity to Christianity, but also our values as people, and we also practice a lot of hair policing and respectability politics, and that's just what it is. Following the interview, Bennett said he got a call from the school offering the job. He was invited to visit the school to complete paperwork and meet the vice principal of the afternoon shift where he was assigned. In his visit to the school, he was asked to do a second interview with the principal, the vice principal, and a dean of discipline and a guidance counselor. He said the principal informed him that senior staff members were being used for the interview because the new school board was not yet in place. During the interview, Bennett said the guidance counselor raised concern about his weight and he believes that what unfolded prevented him from getting the job. Rounding out the interview, the guidance counselor shifted in his chair when it was his turn to ask me questions. He said, "I don't mean to offend you, and this is meant in no offense, but how do you navigate based on your weight?" recalled Bennett. And I asked, "What do you mean?" He then went to say that I have worked at other schools, and he mentioned Herbert Morrison Technical High School and that children there are much different from the ones here. He said that children are mean and will say unkind things. I said to him, "I have never been small. I've always been heavyset." He said he went to explain that I have lived in Jamaica for almost 35 years. Jamaica is one of the hardest training grounds for anybody different. So if I can survive and navigate Jamaica, I can survive and navigate children. Bennett said that to his surprise, the interview shifted from his credentials and skills as a high school English language teacher to his medical background. And honestly, I understand why they would bring up his weight, because in Jamaica, anywhere, If you're going to teach children, especially at a adolescent age, kids say whatever comes to mind. They don't have any filter at that age, and they are going to be mean. And quite frankly, I feel like Jamaica is one of the hardest place to be as a person, because and to grow up and to live, because we literally say anything, and it falls into the same thing with our children. But I feel like children, especially from my generation, we had a little bit more decorum. I can't speak to the generation now and how they did their schooling and how they approach their teachers, but we had a little bit of decorum when we had our teachers in front of us. I could understand if they brought up his weight in the case of how he will navigate being a teacher, because like if you're more heavy set, teaching in Jamaica requires you to be on your feet for hours at a time. If that was the way they were navigating those questions, I would have said, okay, that's fine. But they are navigating it through the lens of him not being able to handle comments from children. And quite frankly, I feel like that's not the way that they should have handled that situation in particular. If they were going to bring up his weight, they should have done it from a point of view of, is he going to be able to do his job, accomplish his job with the weight he is at? Because teaching in Jamaica can be strenuous on the body and strenuous on your feet, because you have to stand up a lot. Frankly, to me, it was a little bit disrespectful in the way that they did it, because it's not about him being able to do his job. It's about comments that kids can say. And as an adult now, I feel like there's no comment that a child can make that's going to make me insecure and not want to do my job and get my coins. He, the guidance counselor, pressed and asked, do you have any comorbidity? And I found it weird for him to be asking me that, but I said, the only thing I have are asthma and poor circulation, but those conditions have never stopped me. He said, okay, and I left the interview. The day following the second interview, Bennett said he got a call informing him that he wasn't successful, and he was also told his weight was a sticking point. I was shocked, and immediately I wrote a letter and emailed it to the principal, indicated that I was disappointed, said Bennett, who said he felt that he was discriminated against based off his weight. I indicated to him that I was disappointed that in this day and age we were teaching children that we should live in love and be accepting of everyone, and that is how educators think. I wasn't necessarily looking for a discussion on the issue. However, I'm hoping that they revisit some of their hiring practices, because that is discriminatory and quite biased. It is quite shocking, and that in this day and age, teacher shortage, my weight is a sticking point. People will tell you that I am a neat fat man, and I always smell good, and I've always carried myself well. I have 3 degrees and a bachelor's degree in English language education, a master of business administration, and a master of science in communication, and I am now working on my PhD, said Bennett. However, when the principal was contacted by the Gleaner, he labeled Bennett as a dishonest man, saying Bennett was not denied the job because of his weight, but was denied because he was not a good match for what the school was looking for. When asked why Bennett was refused the job, the principal said Bennett's other teaching obligation had a significant role in the decision that was taken. And quite frankly, I already knew that if they were approached about something like this, they would never say it was because of his weight. I already know how Jamaica is, and they're going to try to save their ass. The fact that the teacher or the vice principal asked if he had comorbidity, which is a disease or medical condition that is simultaneously present with another or others in a patient. So you having multiple disease is comorbidity, tells that his weight was a factor in the decision of him not getting a job. Not only his weight, his hair, because a lot of the times people see people with dreads, especially in a professional environment, and they just think that they are going to teach their kids how to smoke weed, how to be a cruff, crush out ganja in a them hand miggle and sit on the side of the corner of the road like stereotypical Rastafari or stereotypical certain set of Jamaicans live. Also, most Jamaican schools are Christian schools. Mr. Bennett have two earrings in his ears, which is another stickler and sticking point as to why I feel like they denied him the job. Jamaicans and being in certain fields in Jamaica is still very biased, is still very discriminatory. And the fact that there is a lot of teachers that are migrating and don't want to be teachers in Jamaica anymore, and they're discriminating against a man that is more than qualified to be a teacher, says a lot about where we are as a society, which is why I wanted to talk about this. And when people complain about the job market in Jamaica and being overqualified for certain jobs and not getting it because of how they look or certain discriminatory practices, this is one of them. And when they complain about you have to know people to get into certain jobs and certain job fields, when you look a certain way, this is a prime example. But with this being said, Mr. Bennett can kill them with success, getting his PhD, applying for more English teaching jobs, and being a great educator. And I think that in the future, if he wants to go into the public school system and somebody allows him the chance to do so, he would probably make a great teacher. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Leave your comments in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next one. Deuces.